Hello and welcome to my How to Play Eldrazi Tron video. So let's just go ahead and hop right in. So Eldrazi Tron, typically in the name, you are trying to assemble Tron and play Eldrazi. Now if you're new to Modern, this is a pretty good deck. It was my first Modern deck and I stick with it because it's a consistently powerful deck. And basically the deck's power level, like in the format, depends on how powerful Chalice of the Void is. So let's see if we can bring up Chalice to be big here. Chalice of the Void is this artifact right here, and it is an XX artifact. It says Chalice of the Void enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Whenever a player casts a spell with CMC equal to the number of charge counters on Chalice of the Void, counter that spell. If you don't know what CMC is, it is the total casting cost of a spell. So All Is Dust is 7, Reality Smasher is 5, Dismember is 3. And a spell that has XX in it, whatever you cast it for, that is its CMC while it's on the stack when you're casting it. So if I had a Chalice for 2 on the battlefield, so if I paid 4 mana for this, paid 2 here and 2 here, it would come in with 2 counters. And any spell that costs 2 mana, my opponent's cast would get countered. So if I was to cast Chalice for 1, so I played 1 here and 1 here, that means I cost 2 mana for total, it would get countered by the other Chalice. You understand what I'm saying there? It's a bit of a confusing card when you start working in other X's, but usually you're just going to want to cast Chalice for 1 against a lot of the prowess decks right now. Some decks you do want to play Chalice for 2, but you'll figure that out over time. Like the Storm is probably the one where you'd want to cast Chalice for 2. And there are some others, but so essentially, if you don't know what Tron is Urza's Tower, Urza's Power Plant, and Urza's Mine, right? So pretty much if you get one of each on the battlefield, they tap for more mana. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total. So, and you get those and you start casting large powerful spells. You want to cast, like, for instance, Thought-Knot Seers, Karn the Great Creator, and you grab things from your sideboard, and Reality Smashers. We also have Eldrazi Temple, which is essentially like one of the 2 mana Tron lands, but you don't need to assemble Tron for that. But it only gives you 2 mana for our Eldrazi creatures, which are our Matter Reshapers, Thought-Knot Seers, and Reality Smashers. And typically, these 3 cards are our best cards against a lot of mid-range decks. So Matter Reshaper is absolutely great against mid-range decks that aren't playing white, if they're not playing Path. So Matter Reshaper, when he dies, you flip the top card of your library, and if it costs less mana, or if it costs equal or less mana than Matter Reshaper, you get to play it for free. Thought-Knot Seer, or it would go to your hand. But Thought-Knot Seer now, when you cast it, you get to look at your opponent's hand and exile a non-land card, and then when they eventually remove Thought-Knot Seer, they get to draw a card. So typically, if they have a removal spell, you play Thought-Knot Seer, they kill it with the trigger to look at their hand on the stack, and then you get to take their best card, right? So you're trading, you cast Thought-Knot Seer, that is 1 less card from you. They kill Thought-Knot Seer with their removal spell, so that is now a 1-for-1 trade. They draw a card, you remove a card. So it's a weird roundabout 1-for-1, but you end up taking the best card from their hand. I don't know why that was so hard for me to wrap my mind around. And Reality Smasher is just like pushed cost, especially with temples, because essentially you get to tap, this land taps for 2 mana. So like our Eldrazi don't actually cost 5, 4, and 3. They cost 2, 3, 4 usually, and that's how it goes, or even less. But Reality Smasher is a trample haste 5/5. He's how we kill opponents a lot of the time. When he enters, or not when he enters, when he becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, they have to discard a card or their spell gets countered. So essentially, opponent has to 2-for-1 themselves to get rid of Reality Smasher, which is really good. And then we also do play some utility lands. The ones that I'll mention are Cavern of Souls and Blast Zone, because those are the ones that we always play. So Cavern of Souls, when it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type, and then you can add 1 mana of any color, spend that mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, and that spell can't be countered. So if we name Eldrazi against a control deck, we can play our guys without them fear of being countered. And then we have Blast Zone, which Blast Zone enters battlefield with 1 charge counter on it. We can add charge counters to it, and we can pay 3 mana and tap it to destroy each non-land permanent with a CMC equal to the number of counters on it. So if our opponent has a lot of 1/1s, like a prowess deck usually does, or not 1/1s, 1-costed guys, Blast Zone can take care of them pretty handily. It's pretty nice, and we can fetch all of them with our Expedition maps. Our Expedition maps cost 2 mana. Let us go grab any land from our deck. Or it costs 1 mana and then 2 mana to go search. So usually that's, yeah. And then we have our other couple utility lands, which are good, but not always good. But like, so Tectonic Edge, this is for like Field of the Dead decks typically, or other Tron decks sometimes. Is tap for add for colorless or 1 and tap sack Tech Edge, destroy target non-basic land. Activate this ability only if opponent controls 4 or more lands. So if we play this against a smart Tron opponent before they've assembled Tron, they will only play their 3rd Tron piece and just probably keep that 7 mana. That way they don't lose their Tron. Unless they have multiple pieces, then they might fiddle with it. But Ghost Quarter, just sack, destroy target land. Our opponent gets to search for basic. Usually this is for Green Tron or Field of the Dead decks. Green Tron just because like we lose that matchup if we don't get them off of their 7 mana, because Green Tron just plays bigger stuff than us. And then Scavenger Grounds has 2 mana, tap it, sack a desert, exile all cards from graveyards. This is pretty good against graveyard decks like Uro, Dredge. A lot of prowess decks play the Bedlam Reveler, so it's good against a lot of decks. And that's all we have for our utility lands. So let's go ahead and throw these back over where they go. Bang, bang. So yep, that's pretty much Eldrazi Tron. We play like some removal spells that we can play. This costs 3 mana, but it doesn't really cost 3 mana. It costs 1 mana and 4 life. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. Good card. 1 mana removal, always good. Costs a bit of life, so it's a little awkward sometimes, but usually getting rid of their creature is almost always worth it. Maze Mind Tome is the current newest addition to the deck, and I really, really like this card. It costs 2 mana. It's tap, put a page counter on it, and scry 1. Or it has 2 mana, tap, put a page counter on it, draw a card. And then when there are 4 or more page counters on Maze Mind Tome, exile it. If you do, you gain 4 life. So the little bit of life gain's relevant a lot of the times. And against grindy matchups, this can just draw us 4 cards. Or if we have it on turn 2 and no other play, really, and we need certain cards, we can scry once in our opponent's end step and then scry in our upkeep. So we essentially get to look at the top, if we want to, 4 cards. So we'll be able to scry, bottom a card. Oh no, 3 cards, not 4, I'm sorry. We scry, we see a card we don't want bottom, scry, see another card we don't want bottom, and we draw for our turn. So we see 3 cards potentially before our next draw. So very, very powerful card. And then also the life gain, relevant. Other than that, Ugin, the Ineffable, Chalice of the Void, and Walking Ballista are other cards. So Ugin, colorless spells cost 2 less to cast, so this kind of lets us go off a little bit, you would say. Like, it just makes a lot of our spells very, very inexpensive. So, like, basically, if we have a handful of cards at this point, we can probably dump them if we get to untap with Ugin on the battlefield. Because if we already have 6 mana, right, everything else costs 2 less mana. So now Reality Smashers cost 3, Thought Knots cost 2, Matter Shapers cost 1. So that, like, literally, if we had Reality Smasher, Thought Knot Seer, and Matter Shaper in our hand when we cast an Ugin, the next turn we could cast all 3. All this does, each player sacrifices all colored permanents. So this is like a one-sided board wipe, and it's 7 mana. So we assemble Tron, and that's just on there. And also noted that it is a tribal sorcery, which means it is an Eldrazi spell. And our Eldrazi temples tap for 2 mana to cast that also, which is very relevant sometimes. Walking Ballista, pretty common card. A lot of you should know what it does. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, where like it works as Chalice the same way Chalice does. So if you cast it for 2 mana total, you've paid 1 for each X. So comes in as a 1/1 with 1 counter on it. As the ability 4 mana, put a 1/1 counter on it, or remove a 1/1 counter, and it deals 1 damage. So it just pings stuff, shoots them down. Yeah, that's pretty much the deck. Karn is probably the most complex card in the deck, really. So Karn, it's definitely the most complex card and hardest card to play with correctly. It's very easy to misplay with Karn. I've done it multiple times myself recently. So Karn the Great Creator is a 4 mana Planeswalker, and he has a static ability of active abilities of artifacts our opponent's controls cannot be activated. He has an ability of +1 until your next turn up to 1 target artifact Up to one target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. -2, you may choose an artifact you own from outside of the game or in exile, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. Starting loyalty is 5. So, basically, what you do with Karn is you play him, and you'll usually minus him to go grab one of our artifacts from our sideboard, because from outside of the game is the sideboard or exile. So usually a lot of the times we're basically you have like a little utility kit, right? You grab whatever's best for your scenario. And like basically we play most of our sideboarded slots for those. Relics, Tormod's Crypt, like it's a very complex kind of thing to do. And it makes sideboarding a little awkward, but it's very, very powerful to basically be able to access your sideboard in game 1. So like we have another Walking Ballista. Ensnaring Bridge is probably the most important one. Let's say Ensnaring Bridge, Pithing Needle, Liquimetal are probably our 3 most important ones, right? So let's just look at them over here. So Pithing Needle. As Pithing Needle enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So say our opponent has Jace the Mind Sculptor. We play Karn, Pithing Needle. They can't activate their Jace anymore. We name Jace. But also relevant, cost 1 mana. That's why we also play Sorcerer's Spyglass. It's basically the same card, but Sorcerer's Spyglass lets us look at our opponent's hand first before we have to name. But it costs 2 mana, which is why we play it. Not really because we want to look at our opponent's hand. Because we play Chalice of the Void, and if we happen to have a Chalice on 1, our spells get countered by Chalice 2. So now, Liquimetal Coating. Target permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. 2 mana. Doesn't seem that good, right? If you don't know what it does, if you don't like know how this works, that doesn't seem very good. So, typically what you want to do, you play Karn for 4. Let's say we're at 4 mana exactly, and we play Karn for 4 mana. He resolves, we minus him, go grab Liquimetal Coating. We untap, play Liquimetal Coating, make one of our opponent's lands an artifact. Now, our opponent's land can't be activated, so they can't tap it. But also, if we use Karn's plus ability on that land, it destroys their land, because what Karn's ability reads is until your next turn, up to one target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. The land's converted mana cost is 0. So it becomes a 0/0, and 0/0 dies. Then Ensnaring Bridge creatures with power greater than the number of cards in your hand can attack. A lot of decks just can't really deal with this game 1 without any artifact destruction. So if you grab this against a creature deck that has no way to get rid of it game 1, you kind of just win the game, because eventually you just grab a Walking Ballista up, make it huge, your opponent loses. Those are the most important things. Like you can read the rest of the cards and kind of figure out excuse me, how they work. And they're relatively simple cards, but those are the 3 that I would really say you need to be the most familiar with, because those are the ones you're going to grab the most often. Along with like Tormod's Crypt against graveyard decks. Tormod's Crypt is just a 0, so you can grab it for you play Karn for 4 mana, like on turn 4 if that's where you're at. And this costs 0 mana, so you can play it the same turn, and then exile your opponent's graveyard if they have like an Uro or a bunch of dredge stuff in there. So that being said, we're gonna go ahead. We're going to run the deck. They're just a friendly game here. So now we're just going to go find a match. I've been trying to find a match that we can pretty accurately display Eldrazi Tron, but I just got comboed out on turn 3, that last game I played. So we'll try to get one where we actually get to play the deck a little bit. My opponent was playing Combo Goblins, and I did not draw any interaction. So that's how it goes. Lost the die roll. I think it's Broken Artifact. Good luck, opponents. We have Natural Tron in our hands. We will keep this. So Nat Tron is basically you have 2 Tron pieces and an Expedition map, or you can just have the 3 Tron pieces. So Soul Scar Mates, we're playing its prowess here. Blitz specifically. Draw. We play our tower and our Expedition map, and we pass the turn. And hopefully our opponent cannot kill us super quickly. Opponent only hitting us for 1, which tells me that they have a light up the stage in hand. Yep. So crash through and mountain, so they play the mountain. Probably hold the crash through for next turn. So he didn't have a second land in hand. So Urza's mine, then we will pass. And in his end step, we will crack our expedition map. Excuse me. So crash through is to draw a card. Maybe it's just mono red prowess. It could be blue red and we just don't know it, but opponent hits us 4/4. Maybe he has another light up the stage. Nope, another Soul Scar Mage. Alrighty. So now we crack our expedition map on our opponent's end step. We'll go grab Urza's power plant. Right there. Now we untap on our turn. We draw our card. It is a Walking Ballista. So, a couple options now. We can either play Walking Ballista for 3, or we can play both Matter Reshapers and our Expedition Map. I like both Matter Reshapers Expedition Map because it gives us 2 blockers, and it basically guarantees we don't die, and the next turn we can play Blast Zone, break it, and all of his 1-drops will die. So, that's going to be the play we're going for here. Like as I said earlier, remember Blast Zone, very good against Prowess. Because most of their creatures cost 1 or 2 mana. Except for Stormwing Entity. Stormwing Entity is a recent printing that is very bad for us. Stormwing Entity is a very good card when Manamorphose exists. Hashtag ban Manamorphose. Free spells don't belong in the format. Speaking of Manamorphose, opponent gets 3 prowess triggers and gets to draw a card for 2 mana, but it also gives them 2 mana, thus making it free. But I'm not here to rant about cards that I don't think should be legal in Modern. But if you want me to tell you about one that I don't think should be legal in Modern, just ask me. Go over to my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Sorgoth_TV. Give me a follow there. I do a lot of this stuff live, play a lot of leagues live. Not live currently, but I didn't think people would want to live watch how to play Eldrazi Tron very much. I feel like most people, if they click on that, they probably already know how to play Eldrazi Tron. So a Lightning Bolt, another 3 prowess triggers, and 3 damage. We'll block 2 things here. A Lava Dart, gross. Opponent's going all in here. Down to 11. Block both the Soul Scar Mages. Doesn't really matter what we block. We get 2 Matter Reshaper triggers, which is nice. A Dismember, and a Urza's Mine, which go to the battlefield. Very nice. Now, that lets us crack our expedition map on our opponent's end step. And so we hit that off the Matter Reshaper. That went onto the battlefield because it cost less than 3 mana. It's permanents only, so this costs 3 or less mana. So, couldn't grab that one. Now we'll just grab Blast Zone again, in case our opponent draws more creatures. No reason not to. So untap, we draw, play our Blast Zone, and we can play a Ballista for 3, and then we can wait for our opponent to attack us. This is slightly important, right? It's called sequencing. So we're going to play this first. And now, when our opponent goes to attack us, we blow up Blast Zone, because we can do that at any time. And it costs 3 mana, and Urza's Tower taps for 3. So this stops our opponent from playing. So if we did it on our turn, basically, our opponent could have a creature with haste, and then they could attack us pretty much again, even though we just blew up Blast Zone and blew up all their 1-drops. So now, though, we blow up Blast Zone, we kill all their creatures. And our dismembers aren't very good here because we're at 7 life. We would have to pay 4 life, which would put us down to 3. We don't want to be at 3 life against a deck that plays Lightning Bolt. So our opponent's at the beginning of combat, opponent's at attacks. Opponent attacks us with all 3. And now we're going to declare no blockers because we can blow up our Blast Zone and destroy all 1-drops. Very good for us. Very, very good. So a Thought-Knots here. So go ahead and do some sequencing here. So usually you want to attack first, even though it doesn't matter right now because our opponent doesn't have any mana currently, but it's a good habit to get into. Attack first, play your things in your second main phase. We will see what our opponent has in their hand. A lot of creatures. So, Monastery Swiftspear, Kiln Fiend, Soulscar Mage light up the stage. So, very awkward. So what do? We get to take 1 card, right? So if our opponent draws a land, they can play 3 creatures or a Kiln Fiend and 1 other. But we have another Blast Zone that he doesn't know about, so I think taking the Kiln Fiend, because it costs 2 mana, is the best thing we can do. Now our opponent knows about it, so we'll pass the turn here. I don't want to play a Ballista for 1. We could have done with one of the power plants, and then we still could have held Blast Zone, but my opponent drew a lot of creatures this game. Strange. All 4 Soulscar Mages. 2 Swiftspears. So he's just hard casting light up the stage. It's 2 mountains. So he'll only be able to cast 1 of those, which is fine. We will draw for our turn. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just counting to see if we can kill our opponent. We can't here, so what we're going to do is we're just going to attack our opponent, play a big old Ballista, and pass. So big old Ballista. 5/5 Walking Ballista. Go ahead, opponent. Yeah, so we win game 1. Pretty good. So now we can assume our opponent is bringing in some number of Blood Moons. So something that you need to get familiar with is the cards that are good against you. So Blood Moon is probably the only card he brings in, along with a 2-mana Destroy an Artifact, because he knows we play Chalice of the Void. So either a Braid or, I don't remember what it's called, but Burn plays it. It costs 1 and a red, Destroy Artifact. It deals 3 damage to that creature's controller, or that artifact's controller. So what's not good against them is probably, what's the worst? So Dismembers are not good, right? Because our life total is very relevant in this matchup, but it's better than not having a removal spell, I think. So maybe we just replace our 2 Dismembers with 2 Spatial Contortions, and I think that'll be fine. So our opponent's going to need to go first this time, and this time we have Chalice and Dismember. So we'll go ahead and keep this one. It's not a fantastic hand, but we might be able to get there with it. Hopefully he doesn't have multiple creatures, is where we're at. we'll play our tower, and we will go ahead and dismember this. It feels bad, but probably worth it, because that would probably do more than 4 damage to us over the course of the rest of the game. So hopefully no second creature from our opponent, but never lucky. Always has the second creature. That's pretty gross, because Kiln Fiend is very bad for us. Like, we might die. So what we can do here is we can play Chalice for 1, and then we have to draw some way out of this. And I don't know exactly what that is, but I don't think our odds of winning this game are very high, now that he played a Kiln Fiend. So, let's see what our opponent does here. Shenanigans. Okay, so yeah, a 2-mana destroy an artifact spell. So, pretty standard. Opponent had a good hand. Keep a 7. Yeah, kept a 7, so 2 creatures, shenanigans, and probably a couple spells. Or maybe not a couple spells. Interesting. Alright, so creatures. Very creature heavy, I feel like. It is what it is. There's a temple, which is okay. Gives us a blocker. Very nice. And then lets us play our expedition map since they blew up our chalice for us. So, good chance this dies to a burn spell of some sort. Our opponent wants to dredge his shenanigans back to he does, so he wants to destroy our expedition map. That tells me he probably doesn't have many spells in hand. Okay, well, he's got a bolt, so hopefully we flip another matter reshaper. That is our dream here. Battlefield. We're dead. We are dead. Now we'll be at 1, but we're pretty much dead. Sure. Right, 7, 10. Yeah, we're going to be at 1 life. So what draws do we have that can help us here? So a land? Yeah, a land. We just need a land. Well, no, a land doesn't save us because he has shenanigans still. Shenanigans is very good against us. Wow. I don't think we have anything that saves us, so we're just looking. Fisher map doesn't do it for us. And we draw. So Karn definitely doesn't do it. So yeah, we lose this game. That's fine. Now we know our opponent has shenanigans. And it could be worth holding our removal for the bigger boys. So now we get to do game 3 on the play. So being on the play and winning game 1 is always very nice because we don't have to win a game on the draw. If we start the game on the draw, we have to win at least 1 game on the draw, which is not an easy thing to do in Modern. Winning the die roll is very important. Be good at rolling dice is a good part of being good at Modern. So what do we want here? So our opponent has shenanigans, and they play Kiln Fiend. So shenanigans was very good against us. It was a very powerful card. Excuse me. So do I want the 2 more dismember so I have more removal? Because I don't feel like he does very much without creatures. So I think our dismembers are good, even though they don't feel very good. I think we're gonna drop our Ugin. Yeah, we're just gonna drop the Ugin. I think I'm playing 61 cards. Yeah, whatever, it's fine. Yeah. Let's see, we have 61 there. Oh, power plant. Blast zone expedition map. His hand doesn't really do anything is the problem. So this hand has a Dismember, unfortunately. And also seems to not really do anything. So we'll go ahead and mold to 5, which we're pretty comfortable mulling to 5. Like a pretty normal thing. Our opponent's also on a mold to 5, which makes me feel comfortable going to 4. Because this hand also does absolutely nothing. So now we have 2 Chalices, a Dismember, and no lands. So this is just a lot of bad hands. Like, this is a very, very unfortunate time. And I don't think we can keep this one either. Like, I guess we can, right? Because we have a Dismember, and he probably just found a creature, like one creature at 5. So, I don't like it, but this is the play. And sometimes you get unlucky. So, we just need to draw a second land, play a Chalice for 1, hope that gets us there. So, Swift Spear, sure. Dismember it. Oh, it feels bad. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a Kiln Fiend, so we draw land here. Through an Eldrazi Temple. That's a very good land. So, Chalice for 1. About as good as we can hope for. So now we just need one more land and then Smasher's live. And Smasher's a very good blocker and attacker. So that Eldrazi Temple is a very, very good draw. Unfortunate that our opponent also had a Kiln Fiend there. So we drew the Wastes. Alright. So Smasher is a very, very good blocker. Because you can't really target it without discarding more cards. So we'll hold Smasher as a blocker. And then we have to top deck. Let's see what our opponent has. Our mulligan battle. Opponent mulled to 5, I mulled to 4. So Swift Spear gets countered, sure. So it got countered because it cost 1 mana to play, and Chalice is on 1. Our opponent concedes because he has no way to beat it there. So yeah, that's pretty much Eldrazi Tron for you. So thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a like for me. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you can do that too. I play a lot of Eldrazi Tron. It's my favorite deck to play in Modern. I try to play at least 1 league a day live, and I'll upload some of my leagues onto YouTube. Again, thank you very much for watching. Come say hi to me on twitch.tv/Sorgoth_TV. Thank you.